Under the cola tree, our stories unfold. Drums speak the past in rhythms bold.
Did you know that concubinage, known as Iko, under the Igbo traditional society, was seen as a recognized secondary union where a man or a woman had partner outside the formal marriage structure? You're welcome back to Igbo Tradition, My Heritage, and today I will be discussing another interesting Igbo custom known as concubinage, Iko. Somebody asked me a question whether concubinage, having Iko, is the same thing with this present day having side chick or side cock. But my answer is what? No, it's not the same, because of the way both present and past our ancestors, the way they went about theirs, and the way this present day generation is going about theirs, they are not the same. I will say that this present day is in secrecy, while during the days of our ancestors it was not a secret. And secondly, it was intentional. They had intention. Will I say so? Mostly because I will lay out some factors that led them into having these concubines. Then you will understand what I meant by it was intentional. Concubinage, having Iko during the days of our ancestors, in as much as it's a practice outside formal marriage structure, but there were some cases that led to either a woman having a male concubine or a man having female concubine. Under the Igbo traditional society, continuation of lineage is paramount. Like I said, wealth. Igbo sees children as wealth. And like I said in one of my previous videos, that anything that would jeopardize continuation of a lineage under the Igbo traditional society, they never joke with it. So concubinage was practiced and encouraged, but it was never in secrecy, because then that tradition, laws of the land, they were very active. So people, they were very, very careful the way they lived their lives. So places like communities like Owerri, Ngwa, that practiced Iko Mbari, a woman could, because I know it will blow a lot of people's mind. They never knew that women had Iko, because we are used to hearing men, but women had Iko. Now I know somebody will say, but adultery, it's abomination. Yes, it is. But a woman that had Iko Mbari then, first and foremost, was with the consent of the husband. And four, will I say, for the man impregnating the wife, for a man that was not able to impregnate the wife. Then, if a man could not impregnate the wife, the husband will allow the wife to go out there to get a man that he will know of. And from what is being said, the man will do some certain, will I call it a ritual, or do some certain things for the husband of the man, which signified that you are superior. And any child that will come out from this union belongs to the man. And it was said that sometimes too, elders, the elderly kinsmen, will also be aware of it, but secret. It was a secret. It was a secret arrangement. It was not just loud, a married woman parading herself with another man in the community. No, it was a secret arrangement which the husband was aware of. And any child that came out from such union belonged to the husband without any dragging or anything. That was that. Another reason why some women had equal there was a widow that never had a son for the husband, or a woman that decided to remain in the father's house, which they would go and marry. Okay, for the widow would marry another wife, that had equal, that impregnated her. But for the woman that decided not to marry but remained in the father's house, would also that had equal, that impregnated her to have children. And it was said that any child or children begotten from such union belong to the woman's husband. Sorry, yes, the woman's husband for the widow, late husband. Then, but for the woman that decided not to marry, any child or children that they begat from such union belong to the father. For the men that had equal, a man that decided to have equal, and via that union had children, there were some rites that were performed if the man needed to have those children in his family. What was called ime nwa. To redeem that child, the man had to go and perform some rites to have that child or children in his family. But it was said that some Igbo communities that nothing like redeeming a child. Once the woman had a child or children from her Iko Nwoke, the children or the child automatically, especially those that practice matrilineal, the mother's bloodline, automatically, they don't, rarely, historically, they never allowed to redeem the child. The child automatically belonged to the mother's bloodline. So our ancestors did not just practice concubinage because they wanted to practice concubinage, or a woman having a concubine because she felt like wanted to have concubine. They never did it in secrecy. It was an open open practice for the men, especially, because the women, like I said, even a woman that had to be impregnated by another man for the husband, because due to the husband's infertility, that one was concealed because it will not be known that it was another man that impregnated the woman. So, concubinage, yes, was a recognized practice during the days of our ancestors, pre-colonial era. It was a recognized practice. Our ancestors had such relationship outside their marriages. But there were some communities that were very, very strict. They were strict, they were conservative, in such practice. Places like Onitsha and Uguta. Why? Because of the reputation, family reputation. It was said that taking up titles like Ozo or Eze, which I know generally Igbo practice, Ozo, Eze, had to be men with high reputation, no dents. So such communities, they were conservative with concubinage. And another thing, generally, redeeming a child, please, very important note: when a child was redeemed, the man going to the woman's family father to do some certain email to redeem the child, it was said that such child did not have that 100% right to everything in the father's house. Like when it comes to inheritance, ancestral land, such child was never part of inheriting any ancestral land or allowed to perform some sacrifices to ancestors, because it was said that such union was legally interrupted. Legally interrupted. The mother was not, traditionally and legally married, but it's something that came after having a child or children. So that was another thing So because it was said such communities that were very conservative with such, they didn't want, such dragging or having issues. So they did not really embrace it to avoid such dramas. So that's about concubinage. Our ancestors, yes, they had concubines, but that were not secret. It was not, they didn't meandering to go and meet their concubine. It was known, unlike what we have in this generation. Men cheating, women cheating. And some will tell you our ancestors had concubine, they had equal. Yes, they had equal, but at least now you've seen how they practiced theirs. It was not hiding. It was not a hide and seek game. For women that had that equal mbari, I explained why they had the equal mbari. Women that their husbands had fertility issues, and then those that decided to remain in their father's house, widow that never had a son for the husband. So you can see they were intentional about it, not just something that they did out of lack of self-control. I will be stopping here to see you in my next video.
Under the cola tree, our stories unfold.